Hi, my name is Bryce Yoakum with Plantwide Integration. Today I'm going to show you our L5X tool. What this does is it can convert an ACD to an L5X or can load an L5X directly. It has an MCP server and API, can run on Linux, Docker, or Windows, can run headless, can connect to a PLC program alive, or should say, can connect to a live PLC or run unconnected just with the code. It can be a logics viewer without AI, or it can connect with AI and work with you to view logics, or it can work standalone where it has no head and AI just does everything. We don't sell this product, but we do use it for many different things in our projects. So some of the things we use it for is for quoting. So on our own servers, this runs and we bring the program in and we can quote a project. So what we're trying to do typically is figure out how difficult it's going to be to add in the code that needs to happen. So the program that we get gets ranked basically a 1 through 10 typically on how difficult it's going to be to make changes to that. Whether it has modular programming, if it's really a large program like an L85 versus a small like through L310 or something. So basically how difficult is a brownfield project going to be and how many changes we need to make to it. Are there a lot of AOIs? Do we need to do stuff online versus offline? Things like that all play into that. But that eventually evolved into a reg system for our customers. So we will use this to sit on a customer server. It can be Linux or Windows server, it doesn't really matter. It can be in Docker or not in Docker. It basically, we normally build an external MCP server that ties in with the MCP server for this tool. So it basically exposes the MCP server through another MCP server that connects to other MCP servers. So basically just makes one big MCP server that you connect to and gets everything. Some other examples of things that we do is for like DWG drawings and things like that. Then from the reg system, we also added in live connections. So we can connect to a PLC and use AI to help troubleshoot live on a system. And really where that comes down to is not necessarily to tell us what's wrong, but to tell us where to look so we can get there much quicker. Some things to keep in mind when doing this is not all customers will let you expose their PLC program to a large language model like Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or something like that. So you got to be a little bit careful on what you're using it for, and if you have your own models that you can use on your own servers, that helps as well, since you control the data in that case. Here I'm going to kind of go through what it is. So there is a user interface that's in the web browser. Basically, you can come in here and you can change to different programs. So right now we're in the power programming. That's all the different example programs from Rockwell that you saw on that list. You can click through these and see the code. There is a search function, so we can search for something like fault, and it shows you all the different faults. There's a map as well. I haven't really used this. I'm not sure that it even works. So you'll be able to see the different tasks and the different programs inside of a program. So this one's pretty small. Is it broken? There we go. You can also copy out the HTML and paste it. So you can paste it into a chat or something like that. So you can talk back and forth with the AI that way if you want, if you're not connected directly to it. There's a little connection helper here and connect to a live PLC. I'm not going to do that right now. I don't have a live PLC running, but you can connect to a live PLC. All right. So basically, I have some pre-written questions that I'm just going to paste into the chat. But first, I got to tell it that it needs to use the connector. So all right. So it should know what program I have open, so I can just start off by asking it a question like, so tell me about this program. My Minnesota accent's coming through a little bit there. Let's see what it tells us. While it's kind of searching, we could just kind of look at some different instructions as well. So a timer. Tried to make it look as similar to Rockwell as possible. Not everything is quite perfect, but it's very close. Good enough for what we use it for. Alright. So it read it. This is Rockwell's power program, 5 routines, 58 rungs total, 2 things worth flagging. So it actually found an issue right away. So it's saying it's incomplete because it's a demo. It's kind of like the starting. So rung 4 auto is incomplete relative to R03. So it only implements off, stopped, starting, ready. There are no rungs for standby, producing, holding, held, stopping, or aborting. So this is kind of an example of what you could use this for. You could use it to inspect your program to make sure it's actually done right. So you could have a skill built for your own programs with common errors that happen or something like that. And then you could run that skill on there before you ship the product to make sure you didn't miss anything. So kind of like a reviewer for your code. This tool right now does not write any code. It only reads code. There's no functionality to write anything. It calls jump routine, PackML interface. That routine does not exist in the export. So this code would actually error out. That's interesting. So it's asking, should we render the issue that it sees? So let's say yes, let's do that. So basically what this is going to do is it's actually going to show us the code. So earlier I said that it can run headless, and this is how it works when it runs headless. It can basically say, okay, take a look at these rungs, this is what's messed up. If you're working with an offline program, but you have an online PLC program that you're not connected to, maybe you can't have the internet connection or something like that. This is something, it would just tell you things to look for, and then you could actually go in the code and look for it. So one cool thing too is you can go hit here and open the link, and it will open one and bring you to where you were, and it highlights the top rung. So basically it's showing us this rung here and over here. Yeah, I'm not gonna read through all of that, but yeah, so you can get a lot of information about the code and what's happening. So we have some pre-configured questions here that I had another AI write. I haven't actually looked at the code myself, and we haven't really run these yet. So we'll kind of see what it gives us back. So it did find dead code. We found that earlier actually with the JSR. What's conditionally called? Okay. Some other questions. How many AOIs are in this? So this might be good for quoting, if we have a lot of AOIs, or if we need to do online edits. This might be a good thing to know. We could actually ask more in-depth questions as well about it, like if we need to change an AOI, can get instructions on how to do that live. So how do we change out the AOI? Where is it used everywhere in the code? Make me a list, a checklist or something of everywhere that I need to change. Because if you've ever had to do an online AOI, that means you have to basically create a new one and then go replace it everywhere in the code that it's used, and then accept those edits so that it gets replaced everywhere. Very difficult and a pain, one of those Rockwell things. There are source protected. So this kind of escaped out of the program that I'm in and went into other programs. But we should probably look at a source protected program so you can see what it does. So right here. So if it's source protected, it's basically going to give you a warning that we can't see it, we can't read it, or whatever. I don't currently have a way to put in the key to open that. You have to have Studio for that. I don't even have Studio on this computer, so. What else do we have? So back to power programming. Let's ask it how modular our code is. Should be pretty modular, but it's so small that there's really no modularity to it, I guess. And again, these are all program sample codes that come with Studio 5000 that we're looking at here. I would love to be able to demo a more complex program, but due to NDAs, you can't really show anyone's program. And I haven't found a good example one that I can use. So if anyone knows of one, put it in the chat, and maybe I'll do another video with a more complex program. Or if you have one that you're willing to share, I would love to have that. That can be, you have permission to share. So basically it looks like it's saying it has pretty good groundwork, but 0 AOIs, 0 control modules, 0 equipment phases, 1 program, no task structure, everything is repeatable, is repeated by hand. So this brings up a really good point on PLC programming that the AI is aware of that most people get wrong. The most common thing in PLC programming is human error. So when you're starting up a new machine, it's almost always engineering errors that you're finding. So what you need to do is try and eliminate those errors as much as possible. And I digress. I shouldn't be going down that path. We're not talking about PLC programming. All right, so let's ask it a question about the actual machine. So why won't the machine start? So basically it's doing the PLC status, so it's going to say, oh, we're not connected to the PLC right now, and so then it starts doing the trace. So it's tracing the rungs back to try and see what the problem is. It could start with a search typically, unless it already knows the tag. Yeah, so we're offline, so I found that out correctly. Cannot start. The path is broken by the missing as underscore writers flagged earlier. Yeah, so basically it's saying it's got broken logic, it's not going to go anywhere. It gives a whole bunch of information. So, I mean, it's doing what I would expect it to do from a troubleshooting standpoint. So let's try, let's see, the e-stop circuit question. Pretty common thing that goes wrong with equipment is e-stop issues or safety issues. Can be lots of different things on the safety side that can cause problems, but in the program what we want to try and do is direct them to the actual issue, whether it's an e-stop or door switch or safety monitor itself. That's why it's always good to have that feedback back to the PLC for your e-stops and safety monitors, or else do your safety logic right in the PLC. Although I do have some mixed feelings on that, on whether it should be all electrical or the programming should be allowed. It's a series. So if I read that, which I didn't, and was like, I don't really understand what you're trying to tell me there, I could just have it show me the logic. I could jump to it and highlights it, and there's our rung. So you can see how that could be really useful if you're trying to troubleshoot with the AI when you're connected to the PLC, or it can actually see the states of these. One thing that this can do, even though it's not right now, is it can actually change these. So the AI could take this rung and show us different examples of what would happen in different conditions. So that's all down here. It basically asks for this rung, and then it sends information like this, and then the AI sends back the different conditions for each one of those states if it wants custom states. And again, we can do the same thing in our projects with DWGs and manuals. So I can have it pull up a certain page out of the manual, like the error code page or something like that. and actually paste it right into the chat here where you as a user could use it. Same with DWGs, so we can have it show the actual schematic page that you need to look at. So if you're troubleshooting, it can have the information about the PLC, and it can also have the information from the schematic, and it could get information from manuals if you have those available. Otherwise, if you're connected to the internet, it could go find the manual as well and use that to troubleshoot. So it could be very powerful. What else should we do? I'm going to skip some of these questions. I had AI just put together a whole bunch of questions that we could ask the AI for this demo, but I think everyone kind of gets the idea. Let's do one where it can't resolve it, so you can kind of see what would happen. So I asked the AI to find me an example of one where the tool would fail. So we're going to open this new program here, and we're going to ask it So one thing I also didn't show while this is doing its thing is that it can search across all of the files in the library, not just the one that you have open. So if you wanted to ask a question about multiple programs, maybe doing a compare on different things in the program, or inspecting different AOIs between two different programs that are on your server, something like that, it could do that as well. So pretty powerful on what it can do there. So it realized that I switched files on what I was looking at here, so I loaded in a different file. So now it's searching through the new file for what I asked it to look for. So basically it's saying the path is not fixed, so it's dynamic. So it is not a source of truth, it is a copy destination. So at rung 2, when step A equals -1, one of the 4 copy instructions loads all 10 elements into, depending on which mode bit you toggled in main routine rung 2. So basically it's saying, hey, there's no single command position for any given point. So I can't figure it out. We're not online, so it just is what it is, I guess. So it's saying, okay, we can just say what it is, or it's confused. There's more than one step to. Let's say this. We're going to go with the absolute. All right. So the idea here is that you don't want to give the AI conflicting information. That's when it starts giving you back bad information. And we don't want to give it too much information. So that's where the MCP server comes in. So instead of trying to read a giant L85 program all at one time, it can search through it in the same way that an engineer would search through it. All right, so this returned. So the different positions, the values, it's able to pull that all from that program. And again, if we're connected to the PLC, this would all be live. It'd be able to pull all the positions live, parameters live. One thing to note that the larger the program is, the slower that the scan time is, I guess. The RPI, maybe would be a better way to put it. So really big, like L85, is going to be, multiple seconds in between reads if you're reading the whole program all at once. Basically right now what the Connect PLC does is it does a bunch of reads and kind of gets a baseline for how long it takes to get through all of the tags. So it starts really high, like 20 seconds or something, and then after it's done that a few times, it kind of knows how long it should take. It lowers that value down to maybe double what it would take, or something. I don't remember the actual percentage, maybe 1.5, I think. Probably sounds better than double. And the reason for that is just so that, we're not missing tags. One of the things that I've talked about doing in the future is building on that part of it where we actually add in like a little historian in the back end, or even in memory, where it just holds all those tag values for a while, so we could actually search with the AI through those live tags and see the history of it for maybe the last hour or something as a cool feature that might be very handy for troubleshooting. So you could just leave it connected. If you're running a CLI, you could put it in loop mode and just have it check, for whatever problem that you're having. You wouldn't even have to be sitting there. It would just, once it sees it, it would figure out what happened and try and troubleshoot that based off of the other tags. Obviously, if it missed it during the scans, then you're just never going to see it. But, it is what it is, I guess. Same would happen with a trend if you were trending too slow. There's no units, it says in here. They're probably on the HMI or something, and not inside of the actual code. So yeah, that's the tool. If there's any questions or any other things that you'd like to know about it, right now we don't sell this tool. It's just something we use in projects. So if you do like a RAG project with us on your servers, this is something we would put on the server to kind of do this part of the project. Right now, as far as the troubleshooting side, we just use it internally for that. It was kind of like a addition because it was something easy to add in and potentially useful for us. But yeah, put comments down in the chat if you have any questions. Like, share, appreciate you. Bye.